Think your old, worn-out coins are worthless? Think again. Some rare 5-cent coins from Canada, even in bad condition, have shocked collectors by selling for thousands, even millions of dollars. Minting errors, rare dates, and hidden details can turn an ordinary-looking nickel into a life-changing treasure. In this video, we'll reveal the most valuable Canadian 5-cent coins, what makes them so special, and how you can spot one in your own collection before it's too late. First up, the 1998 Canadian 5-cent coin, widely known as the nickel, is a fascinating yet very common piece of modern coinage issued by the Royal Canadian Mint in Canada, and even when found in bad or heavily worn condition, it still carries layers of historical, cultural, and numismatic significance that make it worth understanding in depth. This coin continues a long tradition in Canadian currency, as the 5-cent denomination has existed since the 19th century, evolving in design and composition over time but always maintaining its role as a small yet essential unit of everyday transactions, and by 1998, the design had already become iconic, especially the reverse side, which features the detailed image of a beaver, a national symbol of Canada representing hard work, resilience, and the country's natural heritage, originally designed by G.E. Kruger Gray, whose artwork has endured for decades and remains one of the most recognizable images in Canadian coinage history. The obverse side of the coin shows the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, specifically the mature effigy used during the 1990s, which reflects both Canada's ties to the British monarchy and the evolution of royal portraits over time, giving collectors an easy way to identify the era of the coin at a glance. In terms of physical specifications, the 1998 Canadian nickel is composed primarily of pure nickel, a feature that distinguishes Canadian coins from many other countries that often use plated steel or copper alloys. The coin weighs approximately 4.6 grams and has a diameter of about 21.2 millimeters, with a smooth edge and a solid, slightly heavier feel compared to similar denominations in other currencies, and this composition also contributes to its magnetic properties, which can be used as a simple test for authenticity. However, when a coin is described as being in bad condition, it usually means it has undergone extensive circulation and environmental exposure, resulting in visible wear such as flattened details, scratches, rim damage, discoloration, and possibly corrosion, all of which significantly reduce its appeal to serious collectors who generally seek coins in higher grades like extremely fine EF or mint state MS, while a badly worn example may fall into grades like good G or very good VG, where major design elements are still visible but lack sharpness and clarity. The value of a 1998 Canadian 5-cent coin in bad condition is typically very low, often equal to its face value of 5 cents, because the mintage for that year was quite high, with millions of coins produced for general circulation, making it extremely common and easy to find even today. Collectors usually place higher value on coins that are rare, in excellent condition, or have unique features such as minting errors, and while the 1998 nickel does not have widely known rare varieties, there is always a small possibility that an individual coin could exhibit an error like an off-center strike, die crack, or double image, which could increase its value depending on the severity and visibility of the error. Nevertheless, such cases are rare, and most worn coins are primarily of educational or sentimental interest rather than financial worth. From a historical perspective, the 1998 nickel represents a period when Canada had fully transitioned back to nickel composition after experimenting with alternative materials during earlier decades, such as tombac during World War II and later steel cores with plating, and this return to nickel reflects both economic considerations and the country's natural resources, as Canada has historically been a major producer of nickel globally. The coin also reflects the stability of Canadian currency design, as the beaver motif has remained largely unchanged since its introduction, symbolizing continuity and national identity across generations. For beginners in coin collecting, a worn 1998 Canadian nickel can still serve as a valuable learning tool, helping them understand how coins degrade over time and how grading works, as well as providing an accessible entry point into the hobby without requiring significant financial investment. Examining such a coin closely can reveal how different parts of the design wear down at different rates. For example, the high points like the beaver's back and the queen's hair tend to lose detail first, while recessed areas may retain more definition, and this kind of observation is essential for developing grading skills and appreciation for higher quality specimens. Additionally, coins in poor condition often tell a story of their journey through countless hands, transactions, and environments, making them small artifacts of everyday life that connect us to the past in a tangible way, even if they are not rare or valuable in the traditional sense. For collectors in regions outside Canada, such as South Asia or the Middle East, finding a Canadian coin can also carry an element of curiosity and international connection, adding to its appeal as part of a global coin collection. In conclusion, while a 1998 Canadian 5-cent coin in bad condition may not hold significant monetary value, it remains an important piece of modern numismatic history, embodying the craftsmanship of the Royal Canadian Mint, the enduring symbolism of the beaver design by G.E. Kruger Gray, and the long-standing presence of Queen Elizabeth II on Canadian currency. And for collectors and enthusiasts, even the most worn coin can offer insight, education, and a deeper appreciation for the art and history of money. Next up, the 1979 Canadian 5-cent coin, commonly referred to as the nickel, is a widely circulated yet historically interesting piece of currency issued by the Royal Canadian Mint in Canada, and although it is very common, especially when found in bad or heavily worn condition, it still offers important insights into coin design, material composition, and everyday economic life in the late 20th century. This coin continues the long-standing tradition of Canadian 5-cent pieces featuring the iconic beaver on the reverse side, a design created by G.E. Kruger Gray, whose artwork has become one of the most recognizable and enduring symbols in Canadian numismatics, representing industriousness, nature, and national identity, while the obverse side displays the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, specifically the version introduced in 1965 and used through the 1980s, showing a younger effigy of the Queen wearing a tiara, which helps collectors easily identify coins from this period. The 1979 nickel is made primarily of pure nickel, weighing approximately 4.6 grams and measuring about 21.2 millimeters in diameter, with a smooth edge and a solid metallic feel that distinguishes it from later plated coins introduced in the 2000s. This composition also makes the coin magnetic, a characteristic feature of Canadian nickels of this era, and one that collectors often use to verify authenticity or separate them from other coins. In terms of mintage, the 1979 5-cent coin was produced in very large numbers, meaning it is not rare, and millions of examples entered circulation, which is why it is still commonly found today in coin collections, old jars, and mixed currency lots around the world. When discussing a 1979 Canadian nickel in bad condition, it is important to understand what bad condition means in numismatic terms, as coins can suffer from a variety of issues including heavy wear, scratches, dents, corrosion, discoloration, and environmental damage, all of which reduce their visual appeal and collector value. Such coins are typically graded in the lower categories like good G4, very good VG8, or fine F12 depending on how much detail remains visible, and in these grades, the high points of the design, such as the beaver's fur, the water lines beneath it, and the queen's hair, are often worn smooth, while the lettering and date may appear faint but still readable. Coins that have been exposed to harsh conditions, such as moisture or soil, may also show signs of tarnish or corrosion, which further decreases their desirability among collectors. In terms of value, a 1979 Canadian 5-cent coin in bad condition is generally worth only its face value of 5 cents, as its high mintage and common availability mean there is little demand for worn examples. However, there are exceptions, as certain minting errors, such as off-center strikes, double dies, clipped planchettes, or die cracks, can make even a worn coin more valuable, depending on the rarity and visibility of the error. And while such errors are not commonly reported for the 1979 issue, collectors always examine coins carefully for unusual features that could increase their worth. Additionally, coins in better condition, especially those that are uncirculated or have strong luster and sharp details, can command higher prices, though even these are typically modest due to the coin's overall abundance. Historically, the 1979 nickel reflects a period of stability in Canadian coinage, as the design and composition had remained largely unchanged for over a decade, following the return to solid nickel in 1968 after earlier experiments with alternative materials during World War II and the post-war years. This consistency highlights Canada's strong mining industry and its access to nickel resources, which allowed it to maintain a unique approach to coin composition compared to many other countries that shifted to cheaper metals. The coin also represents a time when cash transactions were dominant in everyday life, and small denominations like the 5-cent piece played an essential role in daily commerce, from buying small goods to making exact change. For beginner collectors, a worn 1979 Canadian nickel can still serve as a useful and educational piece, helping them learn about coin grading, design elements, and the effects of circulation over time, as well as providing an affordable way to start a collection without needing to invest in rare or expensive coins. Examining such a coin closely can reveal how different parts of the design wear down at different rates, offering insight into the minting process and the physical properties of the metal, and it can also spark interest in exploring other years, varieties, and conditions within the Canadian nickel series. In conclusion, while a 1979 Canadian 5-cent coin in bad condition may not hold significant monetary value, it remains an important part of modern numismatic history, showcasing the craftsmanship of the Royal Canadian Mint, the timeless beaver design by G.E. Kruger Gray, and the enduring image of Queen Elizabeth II, and even in its most worn state, it continues to tell a story of circulation, usage, and the everyday economic life of its time, making it a small yet meaningful artifact for collectors and enthusiasts around the world. Next up, the 2008 Canadian 5-cent coin, commonly known as the nickel, is a modern circulation coin issued by the Royal Canadian Mint in Canada, and while it may appear ordinary, especially when found in bad or heavily worn condition, it still represents an important stage in the evolution of Canadian coinage, both in terms of its materials and its long-standing design traditions. By 2008, Canadian nickels had transitioned away from solid nickel composition to a more cost-effective multi-layer plated steel structure, meaning the coin consists of a steel core coated with layers of nickel and sometimes copper, making it lighter and more economical to produce compared to earlier solid nickel coins, while still maintaining a similar appearance to the public, and this shift reflects broader global trends in coin production where rising metal prices forced many countries to adopt cheaper manufacturing methods. The reverse side of the 2008 Canadian 5-cent coin continues to feature the iconic beaver design created by G.E. Kruger Gray, a symbol deeply associated with Canada's identity, natural environment, and historical fur trade economy, and this design has remained largely unchanged since its introduction in 1937, demonstrating remarkable continuity in Canadian coin artistry, while the obverse side displays the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, specifically the fourth effigy introduced in 2003, showing a more mature and realistic depiction of the Queen without a crown, designed to reflect her age and long reign, and this portrait helps distinguish coins from the 2000s era from earlier decades at a glance. In terms of specifications, the 2008 nickel weighs approximately 3.95 grams due to its steel composition and has a diameter of about 21.2 millimeters, with a smooth edge and strong magnetic properties because of its steel core, which makes it easy to identify compared to older non-steel coins. However, when discussing a coin in bad condition, we are referring to one that has experienced heavy circulation, damage, or environmental exposure, which can significantly affect its appearance and collector value, and such coins often show signs like worn-out design details, scratches, dents, rust spots, especially in steel core coins, discoloration, and loss of luster, all of which reduce their desirability among collectors. A 2008 Canadian 5-cent coin in bad condition typically falls into lower grading categories such as good G or very good VG, where the main features of the design are still visible but lack sharpness and fine detail, and in extreme cases, corrosion or rust may obscure parts of the coin, especially if it has been exposed to moisture. Since steel core coins are more vulnerable to environmental damage than solid nickel coins, because of its high mintage and modern production, the 2008 nickel is extremely common, and in worn condition it is generally worth only its face value of 5 cents, with little to no premium in the collector market unless it has a rare and noticeable minting error such as an off-center strike, double die, or plating defect, which can sometimes attract interest from error coin collectors. Despite its low monetary value in poor condition, the 2008 Canadian nickel still holds educational and historical importance, as it reflects the technological and economic changes in coin production during the early 21st century, including the shift toward plated steel coins and the continued use of long-standing national symbols like the beaver. And for beginner collectors, even a worn coin can serve as a useful example for learning about grading, material differences, and the effects of circulation over time, as examining such a coin closely can reveal how the plated layers may wear off in certain areas, exposing the underlying steel and sometimes leading to visible color changes or corrosion. Furthermore, coins like the 2008 nickel also represent everyday life and economic activity, having passed through countless hands in transactions ranging from small purchases to daily commerce, and each mark or scratch on a worn coin tells a story of its journey through circulation, making it a small but tangible piece of modern history, even if it lacks rarity or high value. For collectors building date sets or exploring international coins, including examples from different years and conditions can add depth and variety to a collection, and a 2008 coin provides a clear example of the modern era of Canadian coinage. In conclusion, while a 2008 Canadian 5-cent coin in bad condition may not be valuable in financial terms, it remains a meaningful representation of Canada's coinage system, showcasing the craftsmanship of the Royal Canadian Mint, the enduring artistic legacy of G.E. Kruger Gray, and the continued presence of Queen Elizabeth II on Canadian currency, and even in its most worn and damaged state, it still serves as a useful educational tool and a small but interesting artifact of modern numismatic history. Next up, the 1974 Canadian 5-cent coin, commonly known as the nickel, is a classic example of mid-20th century coinage issued by the Royal Canadian Mint in Canada, and even when found today in bad or heavily worn condition, it still carries historical, educational, and numismatic importance that makes it worth studying in detail. This coin continues the long-standing tradition of Canadian 5-cent pieces featuring the iconic beaver on the reverse side, a design created by G.E. Kruger Gray, whose work has remained a defining symbol of Canadian identity for decades, representing industry, perseverance, and the natural heritage of the country, while the obverse side displays the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, specifically the younger laureate bust introduced in 1965, which shows the Queen wearing a tiara and reflects an earlier stage of her reign, making it easy for collectors to distinguish coins from this era compared to later effigies. In terms of composition, the 1974 Canadian nickel is made of solid nickel, a feature that was reintroduced in 1968 after earlier experiments with alternative materials during and after World War II. and this composition gives the coin a weight of approximately 4.6 grams and a diameter of about 21.2 millimeters, along with a smooth edge and a slightly heavier feel compared to modern plated coins, and it is also magnetic due to its nickel content, which is a useful identifying characteristic. The solid nickel construction reflects Canada's strong mining industry and its historical position as one of the world's leading producers of nickel, making the use of this metal both practical and symbolic during that period. The 1974 issue was produced in large quantities for everyday circulation, meaning it is a common coin and not considered rare, especially in lower grades, and when we talk about a coin being in bad condition, we are referring to one that has experienced significant wear and tear from years of use, including flattened design details, scratches, rim damage, and possible discoloration or tarnish caused by environmental exposure. Such coins are typically graded in the lower categories of the numismatic scale, such as good G4 or very good VG8, where the main elements of the design are still visible but lack sharpness and fine detail. And in these conditions, the beaver's fur may appear smooth, the water lines beneath it may be faint or partially worn away, and the queen's hair and facial features may lack definition. From a value perspective, a 1974 Canadian 5-cent coin in bad condition generally holds only its face value of 5 cents, as its high mintage and widespread availability mean there is little demand for worn examples among collectors, and most numismatists prefer coins in higher grades with clear details and original luster. However, exceptions do exist, as coins with unusual minting errors, such as off-center strikes, die cracks, double dies, or clipped planchettes, can attract attention and potentially command higher prices depending on the rarity and visibility of the error, though such cases are relatively uncommon and require careful examination to identify. Despite its low monetary value in worn condition, the 1974 nickel still serves as an important educational tool for collectors, especially beginners, as it provides a clear example of how coins wear over time and how grading works, allowing individuals to study the progression from sharp, detailed designs in uncirculated coins to the smoother, less defined appearance of heavily circulated pieces, and it also helps collectors understand the differences between solid nickel coins and later plated steel issues, which behave differently in terms of wear and corrosion. Historically, the 1974 Canadian 5-cent coin represents a period of stability and continuity in Canadian coinage, as the design and composition remained consistent throughout the late 1960s and 1970s, reflecting both economic practicality and a desire to maintain recognizable national symbols, and the continued use of the beaver design highlights Canada's commitment to preserving its cultural identity through its currency, while the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II underscores the country's constitutional ties to the British monarchy. In everyday life, coins like the 1974 nickel were used in countless transactions, passing through many hands over the years, and each mark or scratch on a worn coin tells a story of its journey through circulation, making it a small but tangible piece of history that connects us to the past, even if it is not rare or valuable in a financial sense. For collectors building date sets or exploring international coinage, including a 1974 example, regardless of condition, adds depth and historical context to a collection. In conclusion, while a 1974 Canadian 5-cent coin in bad condition may not be worth more than its face value, it remains a meaningful artifact of modern numismatic history, showcasing the craftsmanship of the Royal Canadian Mint, the enduring artistic legacy of G.E. Kruger Gray, and the long-standing presence of Queen Elizabeth II on Canadian currency, and even in its most worn state, it continues to offer insight, education, and a deeper appreciation for the art and history of coins. Next up, the 2012 Canadian 5-cent coin, commonly known as the nickel, is a modern circulation coin issued by the Royal Canadian Mint in Canada, and even though it may seem ordinary, especially when found in bad or heavily worn condition, it still carries significant educational, historical, and numismatic value, representing the advanced stage of coin production technology in the 21st century as well as the continuation of Canada's long-standing design traditions. This coin follows the familiar and iconic appearance that has defined Canadian nickels for decades, with the reverse side featuring the classic beaver image designed by G.E. Kruger Gray, a symbol deeply rooted in Canadian identity, representing hard work, resilience, and the country's natural heritage, while the obverse side displays the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, specifically the fourth effigy introduced in 2003, showing a mature and realistic depiction of the Queen without a crown, reflecting her long reign in the modern era of Canadian coinage. In terms of composition, the 2012 Canadian 5-cent coin is made using multi-ply plated steel technology, meaning it has a steel core covered with layers of nickel plating, which gives it a similar appearance to older solid nickel coins while being more cost-effective to produce, and this composition results in a weight of approximately 3.95 grams and a diameter of about 21.2 millimeters, with a smooth edge and strong magnetic properties due to the steel core, making it easy to distinguish from earlier coins that were made of pure nickel. This shift to plated steel reflects global trends in coin production, where rising metal costs led many countries to adopt more economical materials without sacrificing durability or visual consistency. When discussing a 2012 Canadian nickel in bad condition, it is important to understand that such coins often show clear signs of heavy circulation and environmental exposure, including scratches, dents, worn-out design details, and sometimes rust or corrosion, especially if the protective nickel plating has been damaged and the underlying steel core has been exposed to moisture. In numismatic grading terms, these coins typically fall into lower categories such as good G or very good VG, where the main features of the design, such as the beaver, the water lines, and the Queen's portrait, are still visible but lack sharpness and fine detail, and in severe cases, parts of the design may become faint or partially unreadable due to wear. From a value perspective, a 2012 Canadian 5-cent coin in bad condition is generally worth only its face value of 5 cents, as it is a modern coin with a high mintage and widespread availability, meaning there is little demand for worn examples among collectors. However, like many coins, there is always the possibility of minting errors, such as off-center strikes, double dies, or plating defects, which could make a particular coin more valuable depending on the rarity and visibility of the error, although such cases are relatively rare and require careful inspection to identify. Despite its low monetary value, the 2012 nickel still holds educational importance, particularly for beginner collectors who are learning about coin grading, material composition, and the effects of circulation over time, as it provides a clear example of how plated steel coins behave differently from solid metal coins, especially in terms of wear and corrosion, and examining such a coin closely can reveal how the plating may wear off in certain areas, exposing the steel beneath and sometimes leading to color changes or rust spots, which are not typically seen in older solid nickel coins. Historically, the 2012 Canadian 5-cent coin represents a period of technological advancement and economic efficiency in coin production, as the Royal Canadian Mint had fully adopted multi-ply plating techniques to reduce costs while maintaining quality and durability, and at the same time, the continued use of the beaver design highlights the importance of tradition and national identity in Canadian currency, showing how modern innovations can coexist with long-established symbols. In everyday use, coins like the 2012 nickel have passed through countless transactions, serving as a small but essential part of daily commerce, and each worn coin carries marks and signs of its journey. making it a tangible connection to real-life economic activity and human interaction, even if it is not rare or valuable in a financial sense. For collectors building date sets or exploring international coins, including a 2012 example, even in poor condition, adds diversity and helps illustrate the evolution of coinage over time. In conclusion, while a 2012 Canadian 5-cent coin in bad condition may not hold significant monetary value, it remains a meaningful piece of modern numismatic history, showcasing the craftsmanship and innovation of the Royal Canadian Mint, the enduring artistic legacy of G.E. Kruger Gray, and the continued presence of Queen Elizabeth II on Canadian currency, and even in its most worn state, it still offers valuable insights into coin production, circulation, and the history of money v. place.